แล้วการนิคมอุตสาหกรรมแห่งประเทศไทยขอนำเสนอแคมเปญสุดพิเศษ Now Thailand The Golden Era ยุคทองของการลงทุนในประเทศไทยเปิดประตูสู่อนาคตพบสิทธิประโยชน์จัดเต็มพร้อมพื้นที่อุตสาหกรรมคุณภาพสูงครบครันด้วยโครงสร้างพื้นฐานและสิ่งอำนวยความสะดวกชั้นนำทั้งอุตสาหกรรมเทคโนโลยีหรือโลจิสติกส์ร่วมเป็นส่วนหนึ่งในยุคทองแห่งการลงทุนในประเทศไทยไปกับการนิคมอุตสาหกรรมแห่งประเทศไทยสอบถามข้อมูลเพิ่มเติมได้ที่ www.ieat.go.th หรือโทร 022072700 Now Thailand The Golden Era ก้าวสู่ความสำเร็จพร้อมประเทศไทยการนิคมอุตสาหกรรมแห่งประเทศ
ในโลกธุรกิจที่เต็มไปด้วยการแข่งขันธุรกิจของคุณกำลังต้องการเครื่องมือหรือเทคโนโลยีที่ช่วยเพิ่มโอกาสในการสร้างความเติบโตอยู่หรือไม่ Ready Planet ขอแนะนำแพลตฟอร์มการขายและการตลาดดิจิทัลแบบรวมเป็นหนึ่งเดียวที่ครอบคลุมเครื่องมือด้านการสร้างและบริหารจัดการเว็บไซต์การทำโฆษณาออนไลน์และระบบบริหารความสัมพันธ์ลูกค้าเพื่อช่วยเพิ่มยอดขายและขยายฐานลูกค้าระบบใช้งานง่ายตอบโจทย์ความต้องการทางธุรกิจมั่นใจกับประสบการณ์การให้บริการกว่า23 ปีค่าใช้จ่ายคุ้มค่าออกแบบมาเพื่อธุรกิจไทยสนใจสอบถามรายละเอียดโทร 02 016 6789 02 016 6789 หรือ www.readyplanet.com
มองหาประเทศคู่ค้ามองหาช่องทางส่งออกมองหาเราในจับคู่ธุรกิจ Business Matching โดยจิระห้องสำเริงและชัยวัฒน์วณิชวัฒนะสนับสนุนโดยบริษัทปตท.จำกัดมหาชนปตท.แข็งแรงร่วมกับสังคมไทยและเติบโตในระดับโลกอย่างยั่งยืนบริษัทยูสตาร์ประเทศไทยจำกัดเริ่มสวยชีวิตก็ไปได้สวยและยาสีฟันสมุนไพรดร.วีกลิ่นเหงือกเสียวหลอดเดียวจบ
13:09 น.สวัสดีนะครับขอต้อนรับท่านผู้ฟังเข้าสู่รายการจับคู่ธุรกิจ Business Matching ประจำวันพฤหัสบดีนะครับวันนี้เป็นวันพฤหัสบดีที่12 กันยายนพุทธศักราช2567นะครับช่วงแรกนี้นะครับเนื่องจากคุณสาธิตเซอร์เกิลก็ไม่สามารถที่จะมาร่วมรายการได้ในวันนี้นะครับก็ติดภารกิจบางอย่างนะครับวันนี้ผมขออนุญาตนำเอาการบรรยายนะของคุณอภิสิทธิ์เวชชาชีวะอดีตนายกรัฐมนตรีนะครับซึ่งไปพูดในงานประชุมของสมาคมธุรกิจอินเดียไทยนะซึ่งจัดขึ้นที่โรงแรมลัมแบรนด์เมื่อค่ำวานนี้เองนะครับปรากฏว่ามีนักธุรกิจทั้งชาวไทยชาวอินเดียแล้วก็ชาวต่างประเทศเนี่ยไปฟังกันแน่นห้องนะฮะต้องเสริมโต๊ะกันเลยนะฮะก็ได้รับความสนใจมากทีเดียวนะครับมุมมองของคุณอภิสิทธิ์ที่ไปพูดในงานนี้ในหัวข้อที่ชื่อว่า Future of Thailand a Perspective นะฮะก็เป็นเรื่องที่เกี่ยวข้องนะกับมุมมองของคุณอภิสิทธิ์ในเรื่องของอนาคตของประเทศไทยเป็นยังไงกันบ้างต้องขออภัยท่านผู้ฟังนะว่าคุณอภิสิทธิ์เนี่ยผู้เป็นภาษาอังกฤษเพราะว่าแขกในงานส่วนใหญ่ก็เป็นชาวต่างประเทศนะครับแต่ว่าขออนุญาตนำเอาข้อความคุณอภิสิทธิ์เนี่ยมาถ่ายทอดให้ท่านผู้ฟังได้ฟังในช่วงของรายการเรานะครับซึ่งคุณสาธิตก็เป็นแม่งานใหญ่ของงานนี้ด้วยนะถ้ามีโอกาสเนี่ยเดี๋ยวอาจจะเป็นสัปดาห์หน้าคุณสาธิตอาจจะมาสรุปประเด็นให้ท่านผู้ฟังได้ฟังอีกทีวันนี้ฟังต้นฉบับสดๆนะฮะจากคุณอภิสิทธิ์ที่พูดเมื่อคืนวานนี้ก่อนนะครับเชิญครับ
I'm just deciding where I should speak from. I have to say it's a little confusing because when Kun Sathit, the president, kindly invited me to do this, he said this would be a small, casual gathering. Okay. My understanding is when he said small, that's Indian size, not Thai size. But I think what I'll try to do is move around a little because there seem to be guests over there as well who might feel a bit left out if I were just to sit or stand in one place. And I have to say that Kun Sathit initially informed me that I should speak before you eat. And I said to him that it's not a good idea to address a hungry audience. So I think we made the right decision. And now we're going to be talking about the future of Thailand. But before that, allow me also to address some of the issues that have been mentioned in terms of Thai-India relations. I think you are absolutely right in saying that while there has been a good relation all along, given the shared values, the cultural affinity and so on, it remains true that considering the size of India and of Thailand, that we could do so much more. And I'm sure all of you here can be very active in promoting that relation in all dimensions, whether it's trade, investment, tourism, cultural exchanges, people-to-people contacts, all of which are very important to support a strong and healthy relation. When I was Prime Minister, I was very determined at the time, despite the financial crisis, that Thailand and ASEAN must continue to open. And that's when we finished the ASEAN-India Free Trade Agreement. And I think we can build on that agreement and also bilateral agreements to greater effects in terms of drawing trade and investment between the two countries. Just now, if I hear correctly, it doesn't seem like you are very optimistic about the future. So maybe I should take a poll first. Who is optimistic about the future, Thailand's future? Raise your hand. Oh. Who is pessimistic? Don't be shy. I seem to notice that the Thai people are less optimistic. I've always said throughout my career, whenever I'm asked to speak on the future, I'm not a prophet. And what's more important, I've always said that I never believed and still don't believe that the future has been written for us. So the future is for us to write. And what I'm going to be talking about today, yes, I'll try and be frank and candid about what I see are the problems and challenges that we do have, but at the same time suggesting ways that we could move forward. And I hope that you will all play your part in contributing towards change for the better, for Thailand, for the relations, for the world. My message, I think, will be quite simple. First, I think the country, Thailand, continues to have great potential. And yes, we have made tremendous progress throughout a number of decades, especially since the industrialization process. But my second message is that the world has moved on, and Thailand struggles with dealing with the new challenges that do come with these changes at the global level. And I'll be frank, my third message is what's failing us is the politics and policies. And therefore, my last message should be to make some suggestions as to what I think is needed to move things forward for Thailand. So let me just first reaffirm that I am a true believer, and this is not, I don't need to be diplomatic, I'm no longer a politician. I speak my mind. I really do believe in the potential of this country. Reason? 2-3 reasons stand out for me. First, our geographical location, right at the heart of mainland ASEAN. It's a great place, given that the region continues to be one of the fastest growing in the world, has proven to be very resilient throughout a number of changes, and at the center of the CLMV countries which have great potential for growth while we become more integrated through the ASEAN project. Secondly, the attitude and the outlook of Thai people in Thailand have always been friendly to business and open to changes. If you look at the history of Thailand since it's been recorded, one of the earliest saying was that we support free trade. And throughout our development strategy, we have always adopted an open approach. And indeed, Thailand is one of the most open economy in the world. The volume of trade, exports plus imports, actually exceed our gross domestic product. And if you look at the world and look at the map of countries that have this level of openness, usually those countries will be of much smaller size. And the people, whatever shortcomings we may have, we have always been open to change and quick to adapt. This is, I think, something that provides quite a solid foundation for economic dynamism, economic growth, and good relations with others. Indeed, given the current geopolitical tensions, I think Thailand once again will have to prove how we can balance the sensitivities of dealing with the major powers. But that's the second reason. The third reason that I think is also equally important, especially if you look at the at the structure of the economy, is that we have quite a good diversified structure. In terms of production, we continue to be a food exporter, so we don't have problems with food security. Our agricultural sector, while not the most efficient, continue to play a significant role in terms of providing raw materials and food for the world. We've built an industrial base, particularly in the area of automotive and electronics, which can provide foundations as we move further up the ladder of the value chain. And Thai people, being very service-minded, have been able to grow the service sector. And indeed, I think the number of tourists that do come into Thailand is a testament to how welcoming people feel when they do come here. And I'm sure many of you who have been here a long time will profess your love for this country. That's why I continue to believe in the potential of the country, because these are, for me, very solid foundations. But, as I said, the world is moving very fast. And there are a number of factors that have affected Thailand, probably mostly in a more negative than positive way. The first, of course, as I've already mentioned, the geopolitical tensions, and people have not noticed much what we call, the word deglobalization doesn't quite reflect the truth. But the fact of the matter is, the proportion of world trade compared to world income has not increased for a while now, which is in complete contrast to the decade following the end of the Cold War. The proportion of cross-border investment as compared to world income is actually declining. So as an open economy, we no longer have the tailwind of globalization to create opportunities for us. And I think one of the reasons that explains why growth has slowed down in Thailand is because of this very reason. Secondly, the disruptions caused by technology. And I think most countries feel that. But as a medium-sized country, these disruptions can be very damaging and can be very challenging for industries, for services, for SMEs in particular, to adjust and adapt themselves to these changes. So it's important that we recognize that despite past successes and despite the strong foundations I've mentioned, it is quite challenging and important for Thailand also to adapt to these changes. I should mention also the issue of an aging population. Our population is now actually declining, so we have, as a society, aged very fast. I don't blame anyone. I'm 60 this year, so I'm part of the problem now. And of course, there are issues like climate change, which affects the productivity of our agricultural sector, will be reasons or causes for barriers for industries that cannot adapt to the green way, and so on. So when I say that we are facing these challenges and having problems with these changes, if we don't do anything, and I say this because for so long when I was in politics, you know, when there was that tailwind of globalization, when the private sectors just want to get on and create jobs, create opportunities. In the old days, there was a very simple request to politicians. Just don't get in the way. That was really all you wanted. But given the changes that I have mentioned and the challenges that we now face, it's not enough for politicians just to stay out of the way. The politics, the policymakers, the politicians now need to be proactive in help Thailand to go through structural changes that will then be able to address and deal with the changes that we face in the world. And if we don't, it's clear. Number one, there's a loss of competitiveness. It's something that we begin to see many industries moving out of Thailand to neighboring countries, and a concern being expressed that we need to therefore up our game in order to deal with the increasing competition that we have. We also see that if we do nothing, the problem of inequality and distribution of income is actually getting worse. And that weakens the base or the base of the economy, because as more and more people have less and less purchasing power, it's going to be difficult to generate a healthy domestic economy. And indeed, you may hear, was it either yesterday or today, that the level of household debt as compared to GDP continues to be at a record high. And indeed, if you look at the comparison with the rest of the world, we are actually in the top 10, and probably the only country in the top 10 that is not seen as an upper income or high income country. Indeed, when I left the office of Prime Minister, which is now 13 years ago, that was when Thailand became an upper middle income country. 13 years on, we continue to be an upper middle income country, not a high income country, whereas we just heard that India has already set a clear target now of moving into that category. So we are losing competitiveness, we are suffering from a degree of inequality. We need to do much more to make sure that our economy is sustainable, environmental friendly, and significantly for international relations, we also risk irrelevance if we don't actually do something. Now, when I said that in dealing with all of this so far, the politics is failing us, allow me then to identify what is wrong with the politics that we are seeing today. First, and this is for me very odd, given what I've just said about how open Thailand is as an economy. Our politics continues to be very much inward-looking. Our politics continue to be obsessed with domestic issues. And it never fails to amaze me that much of the political dialogue, when they debate about issues, for instance, like crop prices, it's as if it's all a domestic phenomenon, when in fact the best predictor of the crop price, any crop, is the world price, which I don't think any government has the ability to affect much. So the inward-looking politics means that we're not seeking out the opportunities as we should be doing. And given the geopolitical tensions, there is a strong temptation for the political class to sort of retreat from the international tensions, which again I don't think serves us well. The second thing that is wrong with our politics is that much of it continues to be myopic. Actually, just before I came up, I was having a conversation with Kun Vinay, who said, I don't know about the future of Thailand. Can I ask about the future of this government? And I politely replied that I think we should be looking beyond the future of this government and focus on the longer term. And I think that's important because even today, we are still obsessed with when we're going to get our 10,000 baht, whether in cash or in digital term, whether the minimum wage should be raised to 400 baht and how we could do that without affecting business. And nobody seems to be looking much beyond the next elections. Whereas, given the changes in the world, we do need to undergo some fundamental structural change that this kind of myopic politics clearly cannot deliver. The third issue, I don't think this needs much elaboration, is that the degree of corruption that plagues politics is still a problem that we cannot somehow address. Despite various measures, we've had coups justified by saying that elected politicians are corrupt. We have had, is it 20 constitutions now to try to deal with this? We have had so many laws passed, but corruption continues to be a real burden on our ability to deliver the good policies and also a strong enforcement of the law. Indeed, so much concern now with the rule of law, that's going to hurt the general climate and environment that business feel, especially from outside. And finally, the politics continues to be polarized. We have had quite strong conflicts within the political system for, I would say now, 2 decades. And so when I think about how to overcome polarization, I'm afraid it's not about collusion. The solution is not for the Pheu Thai to join up with the Ruom Thai Sang Chat, and certainly not for the Democrats to join up with Pheu Thai. That's not how you overcome polarization. And indeed, the concern over the last few years have been that the conflict is now more difficult in nature because there is a generational conflict. And young people who are frustrated with the lack of progress, particularly in recent years, will become more and more demanding of radical change, while the resistance to that change is seen to be, from their point of view, unreasonable. So what to do? As I said, because I believe in the strong fundamentals, what needs fixing is the politics. So how do we do that? First, because I made 4 points. First, I said our politics is too inward-looking. I think it's time that all of us somehow prompt the government and the politicians to be much more outward-looking and more proactive. Indeed, I have been a vocal proponent that Thailand, along with ASEAN, should adopt the attitude that we should be proactive in helping solve geopolitical tensions rather than trying to hide from it and eventually be forced to pick sides one by one as individual members of ASEAN. After all, every year at the East Asia Summit, not only are the 10 ASEAN countries present, we have India, we have China, we have Japan, we have Australia, Korea, the US, and Russia. This should be the platform where the Thai government and ASEAN governments jointly say it is time to fix the current tension and make sure that we do not cut off opportunities through these tensions and disruptions of supply chains in the name of security, in the name of economic competition between the major powers.
ครับนั่นก็คือคำกล่าวของคุณอภิสิทธิ์เวชชาชีวะเมื่อค่ำวานนี้เองนะครับในงานประชุมของสมาคมธุรกิจอินเดียไทยนะครับซึ่งคุณสาธิตเซเก้าเป็นนายกสมาคมจัดขึ้นที่โรงแรมแรมแบรนด์นะฮะยังไม่จบนะฮะช่วงที่2คุณอภิสิทธิ์ยังพูดจะมาพูดต่อนะครับเรื่องของเมียนมาด้วยเดี๋ยวไปติดตามกันนะครับช่วงที่2ครับขออนุญาตพักสักครู่ฮะ
มองหาประเทศคู่ค้ามองหาช่องทางส่งออกมองหาเราในจับคู่ธุรกิจ Business Matching โดยจิระห้องสำเริงและชัยวัฒน์วณิชวัฒนะ
Zaabnewsradio คลื่นข่าว96 FM คมจัดชัดเจน
องค์การค้าของสกสค.ผู้ผลิตและจำหน่ายหนังสือสื่อและอุปกรณ์การศึกษาที่มีคุณภาพในราคายุติธรรมองค์การค้าของสกสค.ยุคใหม่ยังคงสานต่อภารกิจในการผลิตจำหน่ายและพัฒนาหนังสือเรียนสื่อการเรียนการสอนตรงตามหลักสูตรของกระทรวงศึกษาธิการโดยยึดกระบวนการผลิตที่มีคุณภาพคุ้มค่าทันสมัยราคาประหยัดเรียกได้ว่าทั้งหนังสือแบบเรียนรวมถึงคู่มือครูที่ผลิตและจำหน่ายโดยองค์การค้าของสกสค.เป็นหนังสือต้นแบบของการศึกษาไทยมาอย่างยาวนานไม่ว่าจะเป็นหนังสือมานะมานีหนังสืออ่านเพิ่มเติมวรรณคดีลำนำหนังสือเรียนภาษาพาทีและหนังสือเรียนทั้ง8กลุ่มสาระวิชาจนถึงปัจจุบันองค์การค้าของสกสค.ยังได้มีการพัฒนาหนังสือออกมาในรูปแบบหนังสือเสริมทักษะต่างๆอาทิหนังสือเสริมแนวข้อสอบ WAP The Series หนังสือเสริมความรู้การใช้บาร์โมเดลรวมถึงพัฒนาขยายช่องทางการจำหน่ายในแพลตฟอร์มออนไลน์ต่างๆและแอปพลิเคชันศึกษาพันมอเพื่อให้ครูและนักเรียนเลือกซื้ออุปกรณ์และสื่อทางการศึกษาได้อย่างสะดวกและรวดเร็วมากขึ้นสนับสนุนโดยองค์การค้าของสกสค.
ร่วมเฉลิมพระเกียรติพระบาทสมเด็จพระเจ้าอยู่หัวเนื่องในโอกาสพระราชพิธีมหามงคลเฉลิมพระชนมพรรษา6 รอบบริษัทปตท.จำกัดมหาชนขอเชิญชวนบุคคลทั่วไปอายุ18 ปีขึ้นไปส่งผลงานเดี่ยวหรือกลุ่มเข้าประกวดประติมากรรมสื่อผสมจากวัสดุเหลือใช้ชิงเงินรางวัลรวม1 ล้านบาทในหัวข้อชนวิถีนทีพัฒน์ส่งผลงาน 6-11 กันยายน 2567 รายละเอียดเพิ่มเติมที่ Facebook หอศิลป์ณบ้านเจ้าพระยาหรือโทร 02-537-1388
ในโลกธุรกิจที่เต็มไปด้วยการแข่งขันธุรกิจของคุณกำลังต้องการเครื่องมือหรือเทคโนโลยีที่ช่วยเพิ่มโอกาสในการสร้างความเติบโตอยู่หรือไม่ Ready Planet ขอแนะนำแพลตฟอร์มการขายและการตลาดดิจิทัลแบบรวมเป็นหนึ่งเดียวที่ครอบคลุมเครื่องมือด้านการสร้างและบริหารจัดการเว็บไซต์การทำโฆษณาออนไลน์และระบบบริหารความสัมพันธ์ลูกค้าเพื่อช่วยเพิ่มยอดขายและขยายฐานลูกค้าระบบใช้งานง่ายตอบโจทย์ความต้องการทางธุรกิจมั่นใจกับประสบการณ์การให้บริการกว่า23 ปี ค่าใช้จ่ายคุ้มค่าออกแบบมาเพื่อธุรกิจไทยสนใจสอบถามรายละเอียดโทร 02 016 6789 02 016 6789 หรือ www.readyplanet.com
มองหาประเทศคู่ค้ามองหาช่องทางส่งออกมองหาเราในจับคู่ธุรกิจ Business Matching โดยจิระห้องสำเริงและชัยวัฒน์วณิชวัฒนะสนับสนุนโดยบริษัทปตท.จำกัดมหาชนปตท.แข็งแรงร่วมกับสังคมไทยและเติบโตในระดับโลกอย่างยั่งยืนบริษัทยูสตาร์ประเทศไทยจำกัดเริ่มสวยชีวิตก็ไปได้สวยและยาสีฟันสมุนไพรดรวีกลิ่นเหงือกเสียวหลอดเดียวจบ
13:37 นาทีนะครับเข้าสู่ช่วงที่2ของรายการ The Leader Insight นะครับเมื่อช่วงที่แล้วเราได้ฟังคุณอภิสิทธิ์เวชชาชีวะอดีตนายกรัฐมนตรีนะครับก็ได้ไปพูดในงานสัมมนานะครับในงานประชุมของสมาคมธุรกิจอินเดียไทยซึ่งคุณสาธิตเซเกิลเป็นนายกสมาคมนะครับก็ไปพูดให้บรรดานักธุรกิจทั้งชาวไทยและก็ชาวต่างประเทศเนี่ยได้ฟังกันในหัวข้อที่ชื่อว่า Future of Thailand a Perspective นะฮะเดี๋ยวเราจะมาฟังกันต่อนะครับผมจับใจความได้นะครับว่าในช่วงที่แล้วเนี่ยคุณวิสิทธิ์ก็แสดงความเชื่อมั่นในศักยภาพของประเทศไทยนะครับมีจุดเด่นทั้งในเรื่องของทุนชัยภูมินะที่อยู่กึ่งกลางของอาเซียนกึ่งกลางของย่านCMVนะครับคนไทยก็มีทัศนคติที่เปิดกว้างนะฮะที่จะร่วมมือกับเพื่อนบ้านร่วมมือกับนานาประเทศนะครับแต่ว่าโลกที่เปลี่ยนแปลงอย่างรวดเร็วนะฮะก็เป็นสิ่งที่ท้าทายนะฮะประเทศไทยมากนะว่าเราจะสามารถปรับเปลี่ยนได้ทันหรือเปล่านะครับซึ่งคุณวิสิทธิ์ก็ชี้เห็นนะครับว่าการเมืองนะก็ยังไม่ได้สนองตอบนะฮะปัญหาการแก้ปัญหาที่เปลี่ยนไปแบบนี้นะฮะแล้วก็มีเรื่องของการคอร์รัปชันด้วยนะครับก็เป็นปัญหาใหญ่เหมือนกันนะครับเดี๋ยวมาติดตามกันต่อนะครับมุมมองของคุณวิสิทธิ์เรื่องของ Future of Thailand a Perspective นะครับเชิญครับ
And for me, many of you here can play that role of reminding our government that they need to be much more outward looking. The second issue, when I said that the government or politics continue to be myopic, I think it's important that the business sector is vocal about the need to prioritize key structural issues. And for me, actually, the two most important are first, a complete overhaul of our legal and regulatory system. The laws, the regulations here are not suited to the new digital economy. And we cannot amend our laws one by one. Many of you know, amending just one article in one law can probably take about a year and a half. And a systematic change is really needed. And I think the business sector, the private sector, should be vocal in saying to the government that it should prioritize this. And the second issue is the issue of providing skills for our people, upskilling, reskilling. Because for me, these two issues are probably in the minds of foreign investors who have decided not to come here. There's the uncertainty with the regulatory and outdated laws, and they complain about the lack of the availability of the appropriate skills to make sure that their businesses can thrive. The third area which I mentioned, which was corruption, again, I think all of us here must remain very vocal about our demand for clean politics and politics of integrity. I know that recently there was quite a controversy about a prime minister being removed on ethical terms, and I'm sure you will see within a year or two attempts to amend the constitution to remove all all provisions related to ethical issues. And I can understand that, because for me, I also think it's inappropriate for ethical issues to be determined by courts. But if there is going to be an amendment or a rewrite of the constitution, it's also important that Thailand learns past lessons. I know the credibility of the independent organizations has suffered a great deal, and they will probably be either removed from the scene. But we shouldn't forget that without these bodies, without certain provisions, when everything was up to politicians and the majority in the House, we have been there before, and it wasn't good. So there is a need now. I think it's a good time to raise this issue up so that we have an appropriate framework to make sure that our politics is clean. And finally, on the polarization issue, it makes no sense to me that there is no real attempt at dialogue across generations. Even the most sensitive issues have to be able to be discussed. It makes no sense because I think as time goes on, the differences will not be reduced. On the other hand, the grievances of both sides will grow and more extreme positions will be taken. And given the way that we take information from social media and get trapped in echo chambers, this could lead to strong, even violent conflict in the future. So it is time to talk about a deal or a compromise, but not of the collusive nature that we've seen over the past year or two, but actually laying down the issues where each side stands, and the room for compromise, I think, is plenty. You need the will of the leaders to be able particularly to speak to their own supporters that it makes no sense to continue this way. So if these are the prescriptions for the future, who's going to deliver this? I know the natural instinct is to point to the politicians. Well, I'm afraid I wouldn't put much hope there, given the current setup that we are seeing. But politicians, bad or good, they somehow will need to respond to the general public and all the other key players. Bureaucrats have to be strong, have to be professional to resist all the things that they have maybe asked to do, which they shouldn't do by politicians. They have to stand up more, and they have to provide the public with the knowledge and information, about the issues I've talked about, whether it's relations with outside, whether it's a more long-term perspective on the problems that people face. The media really need to be reformed to actually provide room for discussion, provide information in an unbiased way, and not also get trapped in this polarized environment. And most important, as people, we should all be vocal and active. So whenever I go anywhere now and people who are frustrated with politics and they say to me, you get back in. That's not the only way. I will continue to be a citizen, and I can be vocal and I can express my thoughts and make my contributions, and so can all of you and the rest of the country. Earlier this year, I congratulated India, the biggest democracy in the world. God knows how they organize elections. How many days do you need? But the people of India delivered a verdict that the whole world applauds. Because the world thought the government was doing well, but somehow the rest of the world was beginning to be concerned that the government might have too much power. And somehow the 1.4 billion people democracy was able to deliver just the right balance to retain a government that is popular, but restrain a government that looks like it wants too much power. If India can do it, why can't Thailand? So I may disappoint you if you thought I would be here to tell you what the future is going to look like. I never do that. I'm here to tell you once again, the future is for us to write. Let's write it together and move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency, for a very thoughtful address to our audience here. And what you rightly said, future we have to write together. Future cannot be created without the cooperation of all the people. May I request our ITBA President, Mr. Satish Sehgal, to say a word of thanks. Yeah, before that we do, I think His Excellency would like to take some questions from the audience.
I think Satit is saying that I can't get away with a sort of almost free meal. I need to answer questions, right?
So,
Okay.
the audience, please feel free. The gentleman in the back row is raising the hands. Can somebody give him a mic, please?
Good evening, Prime Minister. My name is Imtiaz Maqbul. I cover the travel and tourism industry. I'm a journalist. And thank you very much for being here today, and thanks very much to the Indian Chamber of India Thai Business Association for the invitation. My question relates to your comment about Thailand taking a proactive position towards solving geopolitical issues rather than waiting to be hit by the impact of that. Could you elaborate a little bit on that? What kind of geopolitical issues are you referring to? Specifically, for example, the one in the Middle East where some Thai hostages are still there and that situation is getting worse by the day. The Russia-Ukraine situation is also doesn't seem to be getting anywhere. And now we are looking at a very polarized election coming up in the United States, the ripple effect of which will also have a very wide and broad impact here on Thailand. I mean, that's just my perspective, but I was wondering if you have any specific political issue that you think Thailand would be well positioned to make a difference and how that can be done.
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is our neighbor, Myanmar. Allowing the Myanmar situation to be like this for a few years has really affected the reputation of ASEAN and of Thailand. And we have a long border with Myanmar. We should be much more active on this. And actually this is one issue where I think Thailand and ASEAN should be proactively inviting the US, China and India to help solve the situation, because it's in the interest of all countries that Myanmar becomes stable, that the country holds together in some form, that some kind of compromise, if you like, is reached between the regime, the ethnic groups, and the national unity government. It makes, again, for me, it doesn't help anyone for the situation to deteriorate to a point where they may split, Myanmar might split into a number of countries. Doesn't help China, doesn't help India, doesn't help Thailand, doesn't help the US. Why not get together and include countries like Japan and others, to use international pressure to create a solution as soon as possible. And just by doing that, it will prove also to the world that yes, China and the US and India and Japan and ASEAN can work together. If we can do it here, why then not move into Gaza, Ukraine, Sudan, and others? Myanmar, I think, would be the most natural place to start.
Any other? Yeah, please. Can you give her a mic, please?
I'm a journalist too. I've listened to you often at the FCCT. My question was, do you feel more, since you're so articulate and so vociferous, do you feel more frustrated being out of politics than when you were there in?
I'm not sure how you measure levels of frustration. Frustration is not really, not the dominant mood. When I see something that's not going right, I tend to think about the need to do something or to prompt people to do something. So being out of politics in one way makes it easier for me now because I can speak. No party affiliation, no political position. I can speak my mind much more directly. So maybe if that means easing the frustration, then you may be right that out of politics it may be easier. But I don't know. When you watch football, when you watch sports, those of us who can't play the game can be very vocal and frustrated. Why didn't he do that? And well, when you're inside, it's different. So I don't know. I just feel that the more important thing is wherever you are, what you should be doing to address what you see is not right, rather than just let it go.
Any other person? On the left side, yeah. Mr. Sifani, please. Can you give him a mic?
Thank you, sir, for your very articulate description of the current situation. I remember very well that when you resigned as a member of Democratic Party, you mentioned that politics without principle is a sin, and you quoted Mahatma Gandhi. While you can speak your mind today, but I feel that you can be very instrumental in implementing the changes that Thailand needs to implement and play a far more active role. That would be in the interest of the country. What do you say to that? Thank you.
I say thank you for the compliment. I think you have to be realistic about making decisions going in and out of politics. I decided to give up various positions because I could no longer remain with a clear conscience. I wanted to stick to my principles. I've never said that I've retired from politics. I'm just taking a very long sabbatical at the moment. And my answer has always been that I would only get back if I felt that I could really make a difference. And I have to be realistic. It is not easy given the current political environment, given the current polarization and so on. That doesn't mean I've turned my back. I don't think a day goes by for me without getting a call from fellow politicians who worked with me in the past asking me when I'm going to get back into politics. But One thing also is that I started my career, I was very determined to be part of the Democrat Party, which I have long considered to be the only proper political party in Thailand, even up until recently. I've never had any thoughts about switching to another party. And at my age, and with my experience, I never feel it would be appropriate for me to set up a party either. Because I've always believed that parties, organizations are much, much more important than a person or a personality. And it would make it, it would be a very difficult job for me to set up a party without people viewing it as my party rather than a party that represents certain ideals. So that's why I remain where I am. I'm sorry to see how my old party has moved. I didn't say this, but somebody said it to me outside this room, that the party has sold its soul. And I think that hits the nail right on the head. If by whatever means, maybe it might take a miracle, I can somehow reinstall that soul into the Democrat Party. If I felt I could do it, I would certainly do it.
Thank you, Excellency.
คุณวิสิทธิ์เวชชาชีวะอดีตนายกรัฐมนตรีเมื่อค่ำวานนี้เองนะครับกับสดๆร้อนๆในงานของสมาคมธุรกิจอินเดียไทยที่คุณสาธิตเสกาเป็นนายกสมาคมนะครับก็ได้พูดถึงอนาคตของประเทศไทย Future of Thailand Perspective นะครับให้บรรดานักธุรกิจชาวไทยและชาวต่างประเทศได้มองเห็นมุมมองของคุณวิสิทธิ์นะครับท่านผู้ฟังสามารถติดตามฉบับเต็มได้นะใน Facebook ของ Zaabnewsradio แล้วก็YouTube นะ Zaabnewsradio ด้วยเช่นกันนะครับแล้วก็ถ้ามีโอกาสสัปดาห์หน้าอยากมาฟังมุมมองคุณสาธิตนะว่าได้ฟังแล้วคิดยังไงบ้างมาสรุปประเด็นกันนะครับวันนี้ลาท่านผู้ฟังเพียงเท่านี้ครับขอบพระคุณครับสวัสดีครับ
มองหาประเทศคู่ค้ามองหาช่องทางส่งออกมองหาเราในจับคู่ธุรกิจ Business Matching โดยจิระห้องสำเริงและชัยวัฒน์วณิชวัฒนะ